إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ. That indeed the Abrar will be in delight. Now this really gets beautiful over here. So inna is an alama for tawqeed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses, or in Arabic it is used for the sake of emphasis. So when there's emphasis implied, you use the term inna. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says al-abrar, and abrar is the plural of bar. So when a person is righteous, he is known as bar, and the act of righteousness is known as bir. So that kindness that we're meant to show towards our parents, this is known as bir. Okay? And when a person shows bir regularly, he becomes known as bar. Okay? Now this term bar can be made into a plural in two ways. It can be made into a plural in two ways. The first way is abrar, and the second way is barara. Okay? The first way is abrar, the second way is barara. The first way, which is abrar, this is what we call jam'u killa. That even though it is a plural, there are very few people that are actually like this. So what here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that innal abrar, that while indeed these righteous people, while they are a plural, meaning it's not just one or two, they are a plural, there are a small number of plural. And this is one of the beauties of the Arabic language, that in the English language when you use many, it just means a lot, right? Whereas in the Arabic language you can actually specify, is this a large number or a small number? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses abrar instead of barara, this is a clear indication that the righteous people will only be a few. Now what's interesting over here is, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use the term bar for righteousness? Because when you look inside the Qur'an, you'll notice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws opposites. So bahar is the ocean, and bar is the land itself. What is the difference between ocean and land? Who can tell me? This doesn't require a PhD. Difference between land and ocean. Go ahead.
Land, like ocean's water, and land isn't.
Fantastic. But I need something a little bit more complex than that. That was at the simplest level. Just go a notch higher. What is the difference between water and land? In terms of movement. Which one moves and which one stays still?
Land stays still.
Fantastic. And water moves. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He shows us why He calls righteousness bir. Because righteousness is what will give you your foundation. It will make you solid. It will make you firm. But when a person has no righteousness, he will be all over the place. He'll sometimes do good, sometimes do bad. His head will be all over the place. Sometimes worshipping Allah, sometimes not worshipping Allah, worshipping all sorts of things in between. So there's that concept of stability that comes with righteousness. So that is what bar makes an individual, is that when he becomes righteous, he becomes stable. Now what's interesting even more is that what is so special about bir? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about our parents, we're meant to show them bir. How is this different from ihsan, or just being good to them, bil ma'ruf, like we're commanded with our spouses? What is bir exactly? Bir, my dear brothers and sisters, is to show righteousness towards our parents with the emotion of love, unconditionally. So with the emotion of love, unconditionally. So when it comes towards our parents, we should be doing good deeds towards them without them even asking for it. And number two, we should be happy and pleased that we're doing these deeds for them. So you'll notice that sometimes your parents tell you, go take out the garbage, go wash the dishes. You become upset at them. And you say, hey, at least I'm washing the dishes, or at least I'm taking out the garbage. Islam does not want that from you. Islam wants you to wash the dishes and take out the garbage while you're happy. So it's not about the action within them itself, but it's the emotion behind it as well. That it has to have that good emotion, and that's what makes it an act of bir. So you'll notice that just being obedient is not sufficient when it comes to your parents. And likewise in all other aspects of the deen itself, a person who just does his salah, like he prays his salah quickly, yes, he's fulfilled the obligation. But where was that heartfelt khushu'? Where was that longing and desire to meet Allah in that salah? And when a person reaches that stage, this is when a person becomes from the abrar. And you'll notice that it's so difficult to reach that stage. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they are so few in number. Because these physical deeds, a lot of us are doing them. But that emotional attachment, taking it to the next level through the internal state, that's what makes a person from the Abrar. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He concludes this verse by saying, إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ. That indeed these righteous people are fi na'im. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't mention in the akhirah, but rather He says just generally, lafi na'im. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that they will be in a state of goodness in this life as well as in the hereafter. And no other story comes to mind than the story of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. When Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah came to visit him in prison, he asks him a simple question. And he says, how are you? And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he responds by saying, Inna fi dunya jannah man lam yadkhulha la yadkhulu jannat al-akhirah. That indeed in this life is a paradise, and whoever does not enter the paradise in this life will not enter the paradise in the hereafter. So now that is deep within of itself. He goes on to explain what this means. He says, what can my enemies do to me? That if they were to imprison me, this is my time to be alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they were to exile me from the lands, then this is my time to see the lands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His many, many blessings. And if they were to kill me, then this is martyrdom in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you look at his internal state and you find that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he found a way to make the best out of every bad situation. That he had figured it all out in his head, subhanallah. And this is what he meant, that inna fi dunya jannah man lam yadkhulha la yadkhulu jannat al-akhirah. That whoever doesn't achieve that stability, that peace, that tranquility, that serenity with Islam in this life, then he will not reap the fruits of paradise in the hereafter. That the akhirah and the dunya, they're not disconnected, they're not two separate entities. But rather the dunya is reflective of the akhirah in terms of your actions and the way that you are. So if Allah has granted you serenity and tranquility and happiness and contentness in this life through your Islam, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala you will reap the fruits of it in the hereafter as well.